Somebody might need to rub my shoulders.
Honey bunny.
Leave me alone. You know, I'm putting in time. Putting in order my coffee.
I went to PT today, and then attached an electric.
Nice. Good job.
Well, then it would be a lot worse.
Wow, dude. Look at this. Look at all that.
Good evening, everyone. The time is now, and the Warwick Finance Committee is open. First will be acceptance of the minutes from the committee meeting held on September 20th. Do I have a motion?
Favorable action.
Second. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. On to PCR 127-21. Item number 1 is 2022-121, purchase of a 2021 or newer Stetco cable type catch basin cleaning truck. Hi, Chrissy.
Good evening. Public Works is requesting to purchase the catch basin cleaning truck from Anderson Motors in the amount of $252,752. This vehicle we utilize for as part of our consent agreement with DEM to clean catch basins throughout the city. And
Chrissy, if you wouldn't mind speaking closer to the microphone, please.
we utilize this vehicle to clean catch basins throughout the city, and it's an important part of the program and the consent agreement that we have with Rhode Island DEM.
Thank you. And if I'm correct, this it was in your statement that this will be coming out of part of the lease purchase, the bond.
Yes,
that
that's
was
correct.
wonderful to upgrade and to improve our infrastructure
Yes.
of our fleets. Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Gebhardt.
Christy, we talked about this a little bit today, but just for the rest of my colleagues, can you just talk about the bids and how some were excluded due to not meeting the bid specifications, et cetera?
Yes, there were 4 bids that were submitted. One of them was disqualified because the vendor did not provide the bid bond that they were required to. The second, so that was one of the lower bidders. The second lowest bidder, the specifications did not meet the requirements that we had. So Anderson Motors is the lowest qualified bidder.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the committee? Members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Hi, Christy.
Hi.
So, Christy, originally, we received one position paper from you regarding this bid. And then earlier today, we received another one with some changes in the language on it. And I'm still trying to understand what took place here. So I'm going to read a paragraph from the first one for you. It says, the Public Works Department has reviewed the 4 bids submitted on the above and recommends award to Anderson Motors as the lowest overall responsible bidder. There were 2 bidders with lower pricing. However, those bidders have not fully met the specifications as required. Then early this morning, I received this email that says there was 1 bidder with lower pricing. However, those bidders have not fully met the bid specifications as required by the city. Another bidder was disqualified. Who is those bidders in the second request? That's the first part of the question. And why weren't those bids included with this package, even though they were rejected?
So there were 4 bidders in total, and that was probably just a typo on my part. We had 4 bids. One from Coastal International came in. That was the bidder that didn't provide the bid bond, so they had to be disqualified. The lowest bidder, Freightliner, at $215,000, didn't meet the bid specifications that we required, which makes Anderson Motor the lowest overall responsible bidder. And then we received a bid from Ballard Mac, which was $258,000. So there were 4 bidders in total, but only 3 could be considered because 1 was disqualified.
So initially, that's what you said, there was 4 bidders. So why was this next email sent out? And why wasn't the 4th bidder, why wasn't that company's bid provided to us?
So the email, so I received a question from Councilman Gephardt this morning about the 4th bidder and explained to him that I had revised the letter to include the statement that there was a bidder that was disqualified, which would have been the 4th bid. The reason that they're not included in the bid package is because the bid was disqualified, so it can't even be considered.
But in the past, I believe that even though a bid was rejected or disqualified, it was still put into our packet so we could review the numbers and see what the numbers were. But this time it wasn't.
Councilman, I see the director. Come on, please come on up. Thank you. If you could address.
Pat Paschka Purchasing. I think I can shed some light. There's 2 ways of somebody being disqualified. In this particular case, that vendor did not provide the bid bond that was a requirement to submit the bid. So that bid is not entertained. Sometimes you see bids in your package that are disqualified because when the department takes the bid and analyzes it, the specs don't meet or there's something within the bid that doesn't meet, and they can then disqualify it. The only time you won't see a bid is like with the bid bond, that was not even entertained because they did not provide it.
So don't you think that it would be prudent to advise us as to why the bid was rejected? In this case, because there was no bid bond? Looking at this, I don't know why it was rejected.
The first letter, the number was incorrect. If you look at the cover sheet, the purchasing department said there were 3 bids because there were only 3 valid bids. When Christie did her letter, she erroneously put 4. So that's why she did her explanation on why she put 4 in error.
My first letter says 4 bids.
Right, which there wasn't. There was only 3. The first one should not even be entertained because they did not provide us with a bid bond.
Okay, so the first letter and what was posted said that there were 4 bids submitted, et cetera, et cetera. Then the new notice we got this morning said the department has reviewed the 4 bids submitted, 1 bid, et cetera, et cetera. So another question that you just bring to my mind now is, being that the language has changed from what it was originally posted to what we received this morning. This question will be for legal counsel. Does that run afoul of any open meetings? Just to make sure we're doing things correctly.
The Open Meetings Act is intended to make sure that the public has adequate notice of any discussion that's going to be taking place. The dissemination of the information in this manner did not, at least as described here, create any communication between members of either this committee or the council as a whole, such that a quorum would be created. So it is, at least in the information that's described, it is adequate to proceed.
Okay, so we're good to go with this.
The question, counsel, was from the councilman, is that we are good to go with this?
Yes.
Thank
Okay,
you. The
thank
answer
you.
was yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel.
I got my questions answered. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councilman, what was that?
I said I have my questions answered. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you. Item number 2 is 2022-197, State of Rhode Island seasonal equipment purchase, maintenance, and repairs. Christie?
Public Works is requesting to piggyback state MPA number 506 for the purchase of 6 mowers, if you will. They're as quoted on the estimate in the amount of $66,012.08. I'm sorry, 80 cents. That's $66,012.80.
Thank you. And that bid was found on page 10. The second part is this does come out of the capital improvement account?
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Members of the public? Thank you. Item number 3 is bid 2021-283 Alpha and Bravo fire apparatus repairs. Chrissy, this is your show tonight.
I'm so sorry.
I'm about ready to get you a band.
Public Works is requesting to increase the cap on this award an additional $50,000 for a total of $175,000. This bid does not expire until June 7th, 2022.
Thank you. Give me one more. Are there any questions while I review quickly? Are there any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Members of the public? Thank you all. That concludes the purchases of $50,000 and higher. I will now entertain discussion on the rest of the bid package. I will, for myself, I would like to discuss bid number 2022-198. And I got the answer on that one. Okay, is there any question, any items that, bid items that members of the committee would like to discuss? Any items on the bid package that members of the council would like to discuss? Councilman Lattisaw.
I would like to discuss 2022-153.
Give me one moment. 153, that is found on page 66, elevator repair and maintenance.
Correct.
Thank you.
And it's number 18 on page 132, 2021-142 athletic field marking paint.
Thank you.
And also item 14, found on page 88, tire repair and recapping.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Any further from the council? Are there any items members of the public who would like to review on the bid package? Any items members of the public? Thank you. Councilman Lattiser, we'll start with, we'll go in order. So we're going to discuss bid number 2022 on, bid 2022-153 elevator maintenance and repair, starting on page 66. Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to hear an explanation as to what elevators need maintenance and repairs.
Councilman, this bid covers the elevator at the police station, the elevator in this building, City Hall, the elevator at Thayer Arena, and elevator in
the paper it says City Hall, Police, Fire Station 1, and Thayer Arena.
yes, 4.
Yes. Yep.
So this is more of a spending authority?
This is for the inspections that are required by the state quarterly, And then if there's any issues that need to be corrected, that gives us the ability to have that done rather than put the elevator out of service.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm good on that one, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there any discussion on this item from members of the committee? Any questions or discussion from members of the council? Any questions or discussion from members of the public? Thank you. Bid 2020-084, tire repairs and recapping, found on page 88. Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you. So I seem to recall not that long ago, we had done a contract award for tire repairs and recapping. How long ago was that, Christie?
I believe it was August, maybe?
In August?
Yes, there was a new bid awarded.
It was what?
There was a new bid awarded.
And you're looking for an additional 12,000 now?
This is for the bid that expired on September 7th.
On when?
September 7th.
So why is this just coming to us now? If the bid expired on September 7th, why is it just coming to us now?
We had invoices that had accumulated over the spending authority. This is as they usually are, a 2-year bid. So this bid started in September 8, 2019, expired September 7th, 2021. We exceeded the allotted spending authority, $12,121.21. So that was so basically what happens is we have vehicles that go to Sullivan on a weekly basis. We receive the invoices and we pay on them. Because we exceeded the cap by this dollar amount, we had to come to the council to ask to pay these invoices after the bid expiration.
So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a lot of repairs that came to us, or you, from starting on August 19th. The service date was August 3rd. So I don't see any timestamps on these invoices as to when they were received. Do you know when they were received?
I have it in my email.
It's what, please?
I have it in my email.
You have it in your email?
Yes.
What is that date?
They email the invoices.
I'm sorry?
Sullivan Tire emails the invoices.
Okay, so the date they were emailed was on August 19th?
It's generally the next day or the day after. It's generally within a couple of days, yes. On occasion, there are some that we miss, that we catch up with.
All right, so they were emailed on August 20th. And does it typically take that amount of time to pay a bill between August 20th and September 7th? Is that pretty much a normal course?
It depends on when the batches go through. We might send them every couple of weeks to purchasing, depending on our flow in my office. And then, of course, purchasing has to, do their portion. It comes back for payment. So, it's not unusual. We try to get them done within the month and have the check cut, but sometimes they do take a little bit longer.
Christie, if you don't mind, and Councilman, I'd like to, I had a discussion with the DPW director, Councilman, and I was content with the answer, and I didn't pull this bid because I felt the answer was good. Please keep in mind, as I was understood, that when the new administration came in, there was a restructuring, and Christie, because I know she won't admit this, the entire McDermott pool and the arena was thrown on her desk, and to get those repairs done, as you know, that became an initiative of the administration and this council. And Christie and DPW took the reins of that to get those repairs done. And there might be a little backup and there may have been a little fall behind. And I was very happy with that answer. I'm not answering for you, Councilman. Please don't think I'm demanding that's your decision. But upon hearing that and understanding that we're filling slots in the departments, and there's been a lot of time given outside the realm of what the responsibility is, I was content with that answer. And I just wanted to share that with you because I know for a fact, I believe Chrissy wouldn't just come out and say, hey, look, I did more than what I was, originally aware of. So I was willing to forego that just to give you the information, Councilman. Thank you.
So I'm well aware of the new administration, and I'm also well aware of the fact that Christie is not new administration. And I understand that sometimes things can get backed up. But this bid still expired on September 7th, and it's just coming to us now. So I just wanted to hear what the reasoning was for this. I'm all set.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from members of the committee? Members of the council? Any other questions from members of the council on this? Members of the public? Any comments or questions from members of the public? Thank you. Next, we'll go on to bid 2021-142. This is an award for an additional vendor with no request of no further money found on page 132. To be discussed per request of Councilman Lattiser. Councilman Lattiser, you have the floor.
Thank you. Christie, I would just like to know, I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it. Why you need an additional vendor?
We had placed an order for 60 cases of field marking paint that the vendor that we currently have on bid could not fulfill for us. So in an effort to secure the material that we need, we're requesting to add this vendor to the bid so we can purchase it from them.
So this is for the spray cans for lining the fields and so forth? Is that what
Yes.
this is? And this new vendor that you brought in, is the material costing us the same, more, or less?
It is actually, it is a little bit more per case. Bear with me 1 second, please. So the original vendor that was awarded was $31.90 a case, and this vendor is $39 a case. Now, like other things, Fox Valley, who was the awarded vendor, said there's a national shortage and they couldn't supply us. So in an effort to make sure that we have what we need, we are requesting to add this vendor so we can purchase the remaining 60 cases that we require.
And I know years back, we went round and round on this paint thing and about the applicators and the cans fitting them, and we can't do this because we don't want to have to go out. Do these cans that you're buying now fit the sprayer things that you're using?
The machines that they use are adjustable now so that it can accept most any can.
You said the machines they're using now are
Yes.
adjustable. Are those new machines than what we've had over the last couple of few years?
I think that they were purchased maybe when, like 2018, 2019, maybe. So it was like at the tail end of before recreation was recreation, and then,
Okay.
so now it's back, and
Okay, so it's not like it's new machines now?
no, they're not brand new.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion on this item from members of the committee? Discussion on this item from members of the council? Discussion on this item from members of the public? Discussion or comments on this item from members of the public? Thank you. The next bid is 2022-198, vehicle purchase, National Auto Fleet Group. This is a well, the water department found on page 39. I made this request and I just wanted to get some clarification. And so on Thursday, as I mentioned in the previous bit, I sat down and I met with the DBW chief, and I had a misunderstanding, so I want to clarify that. This is from, it says it's from a capital improvement, but it is from the enterprise fund, which is not coming from DPW as I originally thought. And as Christie and Director Earls explained to me, and you verified, or when we spoke, you also agreed. This is coming from the enterprise fund, which is the separate fund from the city capital fund. And one of the discussions we had was, the purpose of a water director, and I think we can all agree, and I was pretty much convinced of this, that there's kind of a need to upgrade our fleet, and when the fleet is, when something happens, the director has to be there. The director has to get in the vehicle at all time of the day and all temperatures of the day and all weather conditions and get there. And this is going to be a purchase that will continue on within the department for many years to come. This is just yet another modernization. And as you wrote in your position paper, you're currently driving a old police cruiser that is almost 19 years old.
Correct.
So I had a misunderstanding of it, and I just wanted to clarify that this is coming from the enterprise fund. It is not coming from the lease purchase. This is in direct services to the constituents, with you as director able to handle the, as we all know, we have an infrastructure that's being updated, and to have you there is valuable, as having the DPW director there and the mayor to make sure everything's moving forward. So I wanted to clarify that because I know those are the questions I had, and I thank you for explaining that. I had any questions for members of the committee?
I'll just say the other question that I had was about, new versus used in a purchase. And I was also satisfied with the explanation that, trucks and SUVs, used trucks and SUVs are of course could be problematic, but B, are selling at a premium right now. And we can get this truck piggybacked off the state MPA. So that discount drives it way down. So makes sense.
And you just said something to carry on. I don't want to, I think with all the work that we've been doing as a city, the administration and the council, all the work we've been doing to try to modernize and get a fleet together that's going to be working for the years moving forward. Dependable is the key word. And so as the councilman said, rightfully so, the fact that we're getting this at this price with the shortage, as we've heard the discussions in this chamber, when it comes to buying equipment, the waits and the delays, the fact that we can ride on the state and get this vehicle to moving forward is a benefit. So thank you. I apologize. I made another. Any questions or comments from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you. So, Terry, why aren't we looking at a late model vehicle as opposed to a brand new vehicle? I understand about upgrading the fleet. I understand about emergency response, etc. The fire department, as an example, has on more than one occasion over the past couple of years upgraded some of their equipment and used late model fire trucks, as an example. They've also gotten some new fire trucks. We have other department heads, such as the building department, who is on the road continuously during their hours of work, and they are driving around in some vehicles that I don't even know how they're driving around with them. So did you look for a late model vehicle?
No, Councilman, we haven't. Used vehicles right now, as we all know, are overinflated right now because of
They're what,
demand.
please?
Overinflated because of the demand. And also, when talking to the administration and the mayor about, used vehicle, they're against it because, as you just said, the fire department has purchased some used vehicles, apparatus, which, some of them didn't work out too well. Spending good money after bad. To purchase, a new vehicle, a four-wheel drive vehicle, with the manufacturer's warranty, is what the administration wants to go. And also by replacing the vehicle that I have now, allows us to repurpose a vehicle to another division. I consider the water department a frontline vehicle. I respond to all sewer breaks, all water breaks, emergencies, as well as fires. If there's multiple fire hydrants being used, I have to respond. The ground Vic just not cut it in inclement weather. And our busiest time is in the winter, as you know. So no, we didn't even explore the option of a used vehicle.
Do you carry any equipment in this vehicle, any tools or anything like that?
I'm the chief of the division. I don't carry any tools.
Okay. I'm all set.
Sorry. Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Any questions concerned from members of the public? Hearing none, that concludes the consent calendar. May I have a motion?
Second.
Favorable action.
I have a motion for favorable. I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. We are now into the Finance Committee agenda. May I have a motion for acceptance of the minutes for September 20th?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. She puts it twice. I have to put it twice. All right. PCR, item number 2 is PCR resolution relative to abatements. Is Neil here? Is Neil Dupuy here? Is the finance? Well, I don't want to put that on his lap. Yeah. Mr. Solicitor, we're ahead of the game as far as our committee goes, correct? The next committee meets at 6.
Correct. It is 5:35 at the conclusion of finance. The next committee up is the ordinance committee, but it is not allowed to begin until 6 p.m.
Understood. So what I'll do, Mr. President, with your permission, is I would like to give Mr. Dupuy about 10 minutes to be able to arrive. And so I'll pause our committee. Oh, okay. I withdraw that request. How you doing, Mr. Schaefer? It can go either one, Mr. Schaefer. Oh, there he is. Wonderful. And there's Neil. We're all set. Mr. Schaefer, we're all set. There's Neil right there. Thank you so much. You look at that. He was ready to jump in on you. It was
That's
like
all
a
right.
backup quarterback.
My apologies.
No worries at all. We're ahead of the schedule, so we're doing just fine. We just touched on PCR 12821, resolution relative to abatements. If you need a minute, please take it. And when you're ready.
Yeah, so this month, we have abatements of $10,746.89. Just trying to clarify my vision. There's 2 abatements that resulted from appeals, and the rest of them are just exemptions that were granted.
Thank you. Members of the committee have any questions?
Yeah, I had a question about the 11568 Fort Brand Services LLC.
That's a tangible personal property account. They were previously located at the airport. They closed with COVID, and they had no taxable property at the airport. So we had to abate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other items to speak of, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I need a PCR on reference number 11559.
Reference number 11559.
Yep, for $415.20.
Thank you. May I have a PCR?
I'm going to need to abstain on this one.
Please repeat.
129, PCR 129.
21. Thank you. PCR 12921 will be abatement formerly 11559.
Thank you. I'm going to have to abstain. I believe that is my aunt, so.
Thank you. I'm gonna get clarification. Okay. Are there any other questions or discussion on the abatements from members of the council? Do you have a hand? Any questions or discussion on the abatements from members of the public? Okay. So we will amend we will move favorable action on the amendment and then move the abatements as amended.
So we're going to just have the new PCR separated, so we can vote the abatements as it remains, and then we'll do the math after the fact.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So 2 votes, first on the abatement package, and then on the separate PCR that was of the item that was just pulled out.
Okay, and we just vote on the abatements package as is, no special amendments or any other wording.
Without that one. We will-
Understood. Okay. May I have a motion on PCR 128-21 minus the abatement 11559 in the amount of $415.20 for a new total of this packet to be $10,333.69.
Move favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Joe. Yep. And now on PCR 129-21, do I ask for any further discussion? Okay. Is there any discussion on this item from members of the committee? Any discussion on this item from members of the council? Any discussion on this item from members of the public? May I have a motion on PCR 129-21 in the amount of $415.20?
Move favorable.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that's that, correct? We don't, it's not amended. It's a separate item now. Thank you. The time is now 5:41, and that closes the Warwick Finance Committee. Thank you, everybody.
Those are minutes. Whoops. Second attempt. All right, ordinance will convene at 6:01 PM. First, we have acceptance of minutes from the committee held on September 20th, 2021. Do we have a motion?
Favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 15-19, Sub A, an ordinance regarding health insurance for city employees. Councilman Lattiser.
Hold November 15th.
That's 15?
Yes.
Request by the sponsor to hold till November 15th.
Actually, I have a brief question on this. Is there currently a fiscal note on this item?
You asking me?
Yes, if the council solicitor or anyone else doesn't have the answer readily.
There was a financial savings forecast presented to us when this was first drawn up. I wouldn't call it a fiscal note from the city, but I'll certainly be happy to request one.
In that case, especially since, you would be looking to hold it anyway, I think that until November 15 would probably give sufficient time for a fiscal note. And then, while I would normally rely on the financial forecast to at least give that general idea of how much it may be of some benefit to receive a formal fiscal note, especially since, some time has passed since that original forecast.
So I'm clear, Councilman, you're asking for a fiscal note based upon the document as presented to you now, based upon those numbers?
Based on the Sub A, correct.
Okay. Will do. I'll make that request.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to hold?
Move to hold to November 15.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. PCO 2320, ordinance in regards to omnibus reforms, updates, amendments to Chapter 4 of the Warwick Code of Ordinances entitled Animals and Fowl. This is Councilman Ricks and I. It's first passage, not drafted. I do not recall what date we put on the legislation that goes with this, but given the turnover anyway we have, we
Right.
definitely don't want soon.
Right, and so especially since this is the ordinance which should be heard after the
Exactly,
resolution. Let's see, let's take the calendar. Yeah, I think that especially with the, so this one is PCO 23-20.
Yep.
Are you looking for, what are you looking for? Is Health Bill or anything else?
Oh, rather the resolution that accompanies it. Let's see, do we have the resolution number handy?
Is it, it's a resolution?
Yeah, the accompanying one.
I'm just, it's, my computer is slow. So you gotta give me a chance to send it.
Oh, wait, it's not even, let me there. I suspect we should hold it till probably February at the soonest.
Which month?
February. Not for the resolution, for the ordinance. The resolution should be before that,
I think it,
because we still are supposed to meet
Resolution
prior as a commission too.
2720, you held until 11:15.
There you go.
oh,
That's the Chapter 4.
Thank you, Lynn.
commission. Is that the one you're looking for?
Yeah.
That
Oh.
one was held until November 15th.
Well, if that one was held until 11:15, then I don't see any reason why, if we're able to have a hearing on that at that time, that we wouldn't be able to proceed with the ordinance itself in December or January.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. That being the case, move to hold to December 20th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 9-21, ordinance requiring the Warwick City Council to receive 60 days notice prior to taking a vote on any contract or benefit package in the city of Warwick. Councilman Lattiser, first passage, not drafted.
I think we can hold that till October 18th. It was supposed to be drafted and ready for this meeting, but obviously it is not. So let's hold that until, actually, let's hold it until November 1st, looking at the dates I'm seeing right now.
Move to hold to November 1st.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCR 9221, a resolution amending the council rules. This is me. So this seeks to change 3 rules. One in a very minor way, just to spell out, we have the ability, wait a minute. This is not the full title.
Sure.
No, can I look at it?
Oh, sure.
Perfect.
In fact, let me use the case.
Fancy. So it's PCR 9221, a resolution amending the council rules. And then it should be noted that there are 3 specific rules that are getting proposed for amendments. It's 6, 15, and 30. And then 15. Okay. 6 just seeks to make it so that right now we had an issue when it comes to a rule that I hadn't seen until I think this year, where someone could demand something be considered by the council before the rule kind of actually made it problematic for them, given the arbitrary timeline. Now there'll be a limit to how long it can be held, and also it won't work against the person if they try to incite the rule. Rule 15 just spells out that the schedule that we have for our meetings can be changed by a vote of the council. And then the more significant changes are to Rule 30, although there still aren't many. One is to make it so that the binders that we receive, instead of automatically receiving binders, we would receive everything electronically. However, any individual council person could request to receive everything hard copy, aka in the binder. So one would just have to say, my preference is for a binder, and going forward, they would get a binder. This is to cut down on costs and to make it easier for the clerk, because right now, everything could be printed and ready, and then something changes and everything has to get reprinted. And it might not seem like it costs a lot, but that stuff adds up. And it takes time that could be better spent elsewise for the clerk. Additionally, this will tweak how legislation appears on the agenda. As everyone here knows, and even the public knows, right now, when things aren't drafted, such as some of the ones we actually passed already today, they still appear on the agenda, and sometimes it gets ridiculous when you'll see 10 items not drafted. It just takes up time that doesn't need to be spent, especially when members of the public justifiably get confused. They show up to a meeting thinking that an item's going to be addressed and get frustrated when they sat for hours to talk about something that's not even discussed. This will prevent those items from even appearing on the agenda, and instead, until they are drafted, and the sponsor specifically says, I'm ready for that item to go on the agenda, it will not be on the agenda till then. It should make it much cleaner for everyone, helps the public, helps us, helps the clerk. It just seems like a win all around. And one more change in regards to when we receive normally right now, we receive the binders on a specific number of days prior to the meeting. This will shorten that amount of time so that we still get it ahead of time. Right now, it's proposed to be 5 calendar days instead of the 10 days that it is now, because sometimes between our meetings, there's not much time for the clerk to have to run around and get things together, especially when there are, at times, more often than we should have it, legislation sneaking in at the end of the time period, which causes all the problems I said it before, as far as having to redo everything and just causing delay and issues that don't need to occur. So that's the gist of it. And I know the council president wanted to speak on this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you putting this forward. I did work with you on this. So the councilman did a good job of outlining what these changes are. These are really internal changes that affect only the city council members. Again, here's the reasoning why I am supporting these. The internal deadline to get things into the city clerk, so we could to get your drafted legislation into the city clerk so she can put it together to get it into our binders. Every meeting since I've become council president, at least one member of the council needs an extension on this deadline. I don't know where the 10 days came from, but it seems to be causing a lot of issues every single meeting. So this is an internal deadline. This does not affect when things legally have to go on the state website, the Secretary of State's website. This is just so we, the city council members, need to get their drafted legislation into the city clerk. So I'm just asking for an additional couple of days. As the chairman said, we put 5. We're happy to reduce that, to increase that number, to give some extra days. But for example, tomorrow, the deadline for the next meeting in October is tomorrow at 12 o'clock. So any legislation that you want to appear on the October 18th meeting needs to be into the city clerk by 12 o'clock tomorrow. That needs to go through the city solicitor. So it's a really time crunch. So this just gives us an additional couple of days. Again, this is an internal deadline to get things into the city clerk. So that's why I'm supporting. It doesn't have to be 5 days. It can be 7 days. Just some additional timeline, especially when we have these very short turnarounds. Again, tomorrow the deadline is at 12 o'clock to get your things in. You need to. There's 9 of us. Everybody works with the legal counsel on getting the things drafted. People are always asking for extensions. We try to do it as much as possible. But it would be just easier if we could just move this internal deadline a couple of days, give everybody a few extra days to get their stuff in to the city clerk. Another part that we were talking about is just trying to save some paper, just trying to save some extra headaches for the clerk's office. If we can receive our packets electronically, that'll kind of be the default. I know there is multiple members on the council who want to continue to get their binders. We put it right in there. If you want the binder, you get the binder. You just have to let the city clerk know that, so there won't be any change. It's just going forward. That is an option. It electronically was not mentioned in the council rules. We want to make that. I get my stuff electronically and encourage other members of the council, if you're comfortable with that, to do that as well. Again, it saves paper and it comes right to you at the same time that you would get your binder. And the third thing is we're just trying to clean up the agenda. There's a lot of stuff that council members, including myself, we docket, and then I don't get a chance to draft it, get it to the solicitor in time, and then it appears on the agenda as non-drafted. For example, today, if you take out the consent calendar, there are 11 things on the agenda and 6 are not drafted. So that is 6 things that are automatically going to be held. So we just want to clean that up. So you docket something, it goes into like a pending file, if you will, and it will not appear on the council agenda until there is drafted legislation to go with it. So that means it goes to the solicitor, it goes to the clerk, it's posted. We have something to review when it comes forward. So we're not automatically just holding something because it's not drafted. So those are the 3 big rule changes that I'm looking for support from my colleagues. Again, an internal deadline just gives everybody an extra couple of days to get their stuff into the city clerk. The default, again, if you're comfortable with getting your stuff electronically, this allows that. If you want to keep getting the binders, all you have to do is let the clerk know, and she will continue to provide you with the binders. You get the electronic information and the binders at the same time, same day. And only drafted legislation will now appear, if this passes, on the agenda. Again, for the example today, there's 11 items total, 6 of them are not drafted, so that's 6 times we're just going to say held to a date, held to a date. This will make the agendas much clearer for members of the public when they're reviewing something, that if they see something that is on the agenda going forward, there's actually legislation that can be reviewed, that can be taken up at that time. So that is my ask this evening and why I will be supporting these rule changes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council President. And any questions or comments from members of the committee? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you for putting together this set of revisions. I think that they're well thought through as a package, and at this time I don't see any reason to amend or object to any of these, barring any further discussion on how they may be improved. I can't think of any changes that I would make, and therefore I would support them as they are.
Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Any questions or comments from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. So there's some things in here that I do agree with, and I think they're good ideas. And then there's some things that I have questions on. So I'll start with Rule 30. It states down on line 31, the docket, which shall consist solely of legislation that has been drafted and approved by the sponsor for placement on said docket, and shall include, et cetera, et cetera. Is that something that we can actually do? The question to the legal counsel.
Councilman Lattiser, the current protocols for the drafting requires that the council solicitor's office submit approved items to the clerk already. So there's no item that myself or any legal counsel can provide to the clerk without your prior approval for something that you have specifically docketed. So this read in concert with the changes about not drafted items makes clear of what will and what will not be on the printed agenda. So it's intended to, I think, harmonize those provisions.
Okay, thank you. On item I, so I'll take the opportunity to inform the clerk right now that I will continue to receive mine in the binder. So I'm not clear on where it states, items shall be delivered electronically to each member of the council by 8 p.m. on the 5th calendar day preceding the regular business session. Is this items that are to be drafted? Or is this the entire council meeting, including the bid package, including abatements? Is the intent of this that the entire binder is presented to us on the 5th calendar day preceding the regular meeting?
Yes, Councilman.
So what is being proposed is that not only are the members of the city council going to have 3 business days to review the entire binder, is that also when it's going to be posted on the Secretary of State's website? 5 calendar days preceding the meeting?
So my understanding is that nothing in here changes when things are being posted with the Secretary of State website.
Okay, so with all due respect, your understanding is, I hear you, but I'm asking the question, does this mean that the book of business we receive, either electronically or in hard copy, is still going to be posted on the Secretary of State's website 10 days in the city website? Can I finish asking my question? And the city website in the 10 days that it currently exists?
Councilman, it's never posted 10 days before.
How much is it posted?
It's posted 48 hours in advance, like the Secretary of State guidelines are.
48 hours
You know,
ahead.
it's never posted the 10 days. That's
Okay.
just how you receive your information.
I see, okay. So what's happening now, or at least what's being attempted to happen, is that the members of the city council will now only have 3 business days to review the entire book of business for the upcoming meeting. Because keep in mind, as been stated before, this isn't, a 40, 50-hour-a-week job for us. So 5 calendar days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday, Sunday, people usually take off. They usually spend time with their families. They usually travel. They do other things than sit there and go over the binders. So now what is being attempted is to reduce the time that we have to do our due diligence, our research, make our phone calls, perhaps visit different places to gather information, do research that may go back sometimes years to determine whether or not we have any questions, concerns, or problems with an item that's going to appear on the docket. That I strongly object to. I think that is completely inappropriate to reduce that time frame down to such a short period of time for elected officials on this city council to be able to do their due diligence and gather any facts, figures, information, interviews, visit sites, et cetera, that it may take to come up with an opinion on or formalize a position on an item that you want to or that you need to vote on. So I strongly object to that part. For that item, I would like to request a PCR. Can that be done?
So this is all going to be done as a package, and I don't think we can pull from it, but I could be wrong.
Councilor Walsh, can an item be separated out of this to be discussed and voted on individually?
So we are currently in the ordinance committee. The committee itself has the item before it to send its recommendation to the full council. It's in their discretion in what form it gets sent to you with what recommendation. If the committee takes no action and advances it, you would still have an opportunity to amend on the floor.
So I would have the opportunity to request a PCR number on
It's
item I on the floor?
The item itself is one PCR in itself. All the rules are contained within one document. So at the time that this item moves to the full council, it would be in the discretion of the full council to take whatever action they see fit. And if your intention is to seek an amendment to clarify something at that time, it would be in order then.
So the bid package is also a PCR, but we can pull items out of that and we can have assigned separate PCR numbers to those. How is that different than this?
So the bid package and abatements and all appear as part of the consent calendar, and there's set protocols in these rules for how we address segmentation of items by right by any individual council member. That's not expressed in the rules as it relates to segmenting something out of committee.
So I'm sorry, Bill, but I'm only catching parts of what you're saying. I just need the simple answer. When this comes to the floor, can item I be pulled out and assigned a separate PCR number to vote on that item on its own merit?
I believe you could achieve your intent by offering an amendment at that time to that section, and that would receive the consideration that you would be looking for. But as far as segmentation, I would suggest that the rules package stay as one complete item.
Okay.
But for the purposes of what I think you may be trying to address, and that means some sort of change to what is currently presented in subsection I, you would have the ability on the floor of the council later this evening, should it be recommended as such, to make any amendments you see fit to that particular section or any other.
Okay, I understand that. Moving on to item O0. Lines 26 through 30. Just looking for clarification on the wording. It says, until the sponsor confirms that the drafted legislation is acceptable and requests for it to be docketed, the legislation shall not appear on the docket. However, once the sponsor confirms said legislation is acceptable and requests it appear on the docket, it shall be docketed. Should that say it shall be posted instead of docketed? Because it seems to me that it was already docketed. So should that it shall be docketed be changed to posted? Just seems like a double talk there.
The verbiage docketed has different applications as it relates to actions by the council. I think it has an interchangeable definition, but the clarification is something that could be explored. I would defer to the sponsor if the clarification of his intent was that it would be that the item would be appearing on the next agenda docket. I mean, the verbiage I think is intended to make clear that once it's approved and available in final form, there will be no undue delay for any member for getting their approved item on the next agenda, compliant with all rules and certainly the Open Meetings Act.
And to be clear, Councilman Lattiser, this actually, the term docketed as it appears, that was originally in subsection O as well. That's why I utilize the same language so as not to break anything unintentionally.
So your opinion on it is what?
I would suggest that the term docket and agenda have been interchangeable meetings within the context of this document as it has been performed over the years. And so it has the ability for that meaning to be applicable.
In its current form, it just seems confusing to me.
I mean, Councilman, I'd be happy for it to simply say it shall be placed on the agenda. That makes sense to me. It's clear. Because like I said, I was
Yeah, I
just
agree.
trying to keep the terminology. If there's a
Right.
better way to do it, happy to do it.
Okay, I agree. As I say, I just found it to be a bit confusing. So it shall be placed on the agenda. That's fine. Thank you.
Do you have anything else, Councilman?
I don't think so.
Alrighty. And just to address some of your comments, first, the five calendar days was chosen. I didn't pick a day personally. I went and I spoke to the clerk, spoke to the council president to figure out what made sense. If there's a better time period to put, I'm happy to hear from everyone as to what their thoughts are. I know the 10 days isn't working, so as long as we can improve upon that, that's a win. And I'd like to preferably use a number that best helps the clerk, but if compromise is necessary, compromise is necessary. Plus, if it makes more sense to have more days than 5, then so be it. We're not trying to make this harder for anyone. That's not the goal of these changes.
Are you asking for a suggestion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, but preferably I wanted to hear from everyone first, if that's
Sure.
okay. Councilman Ricks?
I suggest 7 days. Keeps it simple, and as city council meetings are typically on a Monday, then this would result in the various legislation and the agenda being sent out on the Monday, as opposed to really it wouldn't be feasible to have 8 or 9 days, as that would be falling on typically a Saturday or a Sunday. Then in the case of a Wednesday meeting, it would similarly fall on a Wednesday.
Alrighty. And Councilman Gebhardt?
I would say overall, I think the package, a lot of common sense things in here. I would support the 7-day time frame. I think having a week with the binder is a sufficient amount of time. And then if we find that we're sitting around for multiple days and have time on our hands and need to revisit, we always can.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if doing 7 days, if it turns out it works, great. If we have the same problem, we can always change it again. So that makes sense. Do any other members of the council have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Council President?
I would support the 7 days as well. Again, we're just looking to take the pressure off on this internal deadline, to just try to give us a few extra days to get things drafted, get it to the city clerk in a timely manner so she can get it to us. So I would support the 7 days as well.
Alrighty. Any other members of the council have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Councilman Lattiser?
I'm okay with the 7 days because typically it'll give us 5 business days to do the research that we need to do and contact the people in places that oftentimes are not open or available on a Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, I think that I can get my work done in those 5 days. So I would support the 7-day amendment.
All right, and bear in mind, nothing ever on these changes will stop us from, for instance, if we show up to a meeting and it turns out we didn't have enough time, regardless of the limit, an item can still be held. Nothing in here changes that. All right, so I'm happy to propose an amendment for, I guess, one amendment, 2 things. First, both to Rule 30 So subsection O, line 30, very beginning, the word docketed, striking that out, and instead putting placed on the agenda. And then yeah. Done. All right. Oh, same thing. Oh, so if we're using the Word doc version, it's line 35? Yeah. Same PDF, Word doc. And to be, actually, you know what, in the instance of being nice and clear, it's better off just to say, the sentence that reads in subsection O, however, once the sponsor confirms said legislation is acceptable and requests it appear on the docket, it shall be docketed, to instead strike out just the last word, docketed, and instead replace it with placed on the agenda.
So page 14, line 25, delete the word docketed and insert in its place, placed on the agenda?
Yep.
And is the other one, page 13, line 38, deleting fifth and inserting in its place seventh?
Yes. And so that sentence reads, again, for the interest of being clear, the subsection I of Rule 30, the city clerk shall cause to be prepared copies of the docket and copies of each item thereon in final and complete form, and shall cause a copy of said docket and of each of said items to be delivered electronically to each member of the council by 8 p.m. on the 5th calendar day is going to be struck out, instead say 7th calendar day, preceding the regular business session.
So those two items can be taken as one amendment vote, if that's the committee's pleasure.
So that's my motion. It needs a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So now, as amended, do any members of the committee have any questions? Do any members of the council have any questions or comments on the proposed changes as amended? All right. And do any members of the public have any questions or comments? Do any members of the public have any questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action as amended.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then last on the agenda for ordinance, PCO 3121, ordinance in regards to the scheduling of planning and zoning board meetings on the city council meeting nights. This is Councilman Howe. This is not drafted.
I apologize. Could you repeat that, please, Chairman?
PCO 3121, ordinance in regards to the scheduling of planning and zoning board meetings on city council meeting nights, and this is not drafted.
Hold until the next meeting, please.
That has to be drafted by tomorrow to make it on the next one.
I believe it will be drafted. I submitted it, and it was just, go ahead, Council. It'll be drafted. It's all set. Thank you.
No pressure. All right, so that's October 18th then. So I'll move to hold till October 18th. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I believe that concludes ordinance at 6:40 PM, unless the clerk wants to correct me. She does not seem inclined. So ordinance is finished.
Oh, you want to sit?
Not really. I can do it from here.
Lynn, question for you. I have a resolution on bait. No. Okay.
I printed the wrong one.
Yeah, can I? Good evening. Are you ready for me, kid?
Yeah, it was not posted that one, so just
Okay.
do it up.
Public Safety Committee begins at 6:41. First item is acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on September 20th. Motion for favorable action.
Motion for favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 1, PCR 125-21, a resolution in regards to a four-way stop sign on Clifton and Leroy. For action, Councilman Lattiser. Motion for action.
Move favorable action, or I'm sorry,
To hold.
excuse me, move to hold to October 18th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The Public Safety Committee meeting adjourns at 6:42. We're throwing you out now. I'm serious. Right? This next
Thank you
is-
very much, Mr. Chairman. Just for the individuals that are here, we are still in committees. We just finished public safety. Intergovernmental committee will meet next, and then appointments will meet. We will start the council meeting at 7 o'clock, where we'll do roll call, pledge of allegiance, and then we have a guest speaker, and then we will go back into committees. But up next is the intergovernmental committee. Thank you.
Who's in charge of this?
It is now 6:44, and the Intergovernmental Committee is in session. The first order of business is the acceptance of the minutes from the committee meeting held on September 20th, 2021. Do I hear a motion?
Favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. First order of business on the docket is PCR 91-21, resolution to the General Assembly in support of legislation allowing for the restriction of the sale of firearms in the vicinity of a school or daycare by any seller, except that any such sellers currently operating under such circumstances shall be exempt thereof at that particular location. Councilman Sinapi?
All right, so this language is incredibly specific in the title, so as to make it clear that current businesses would not be affected, aka those like D&L. And for those who saw it in the news or elsewise, there was an issue in the past few months where this came up, where a business decided to start selling firearms in close proximity to a location where children were at, and unfortunately, just due to the nature of the laws and ordinances in place, there wasn't much that could be done about it. So this will seek to request the General Assembly to allow Warwick to address this. It doesn't actually change our ordinances yet. This just requests permission from the General Assembly to embark on that endeavor and request a certain option, such as no selling within 500 feet. And again, all current businesses would be grandfathered in, those that are currently selling firearms. So one that is not selling firearms would not be grandfathered in. That's all I got.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the council? Councilman Lattiser?
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to request from the sponsor to sign on as a co-sponsor.
I would like that also. Might as well put me on that too. Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Favorable action. Second.
I hear a favorable motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next order of business is PCR 115-21, a resolution to Rhode Island Department of Transportation to perform a traffic study on East Avenue between the intersections of East Avenue, River Street, and Bald Hill Road, East Avenue. Councilman Sinapi?
So the title says it all. It's my understanding that there's been a few incidents on this road in particular because the bike path crosses it. And it's a decent straightaway that people think they can speed up on and not realize in time that pedestrians might regularly be crossing. And some of them might be on bikes and they might be crossing at a speed they're not expecting. In addition to the fact that there's pretty dense residential, both on the road and immediately off the road, and bus stops. So would like to get this done. Constituents have requested it, and unfortunately it's a state road, so this is the only option. That's all.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Favorable action. Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is PCR 116-21, a resolution to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation to perform a traffic study on Maine Avenue between the intersections of Maine Avenue, Greenwich Avenue, and Post Road, Maine Avenue. Councilman Sinapi?
Again, the title pretty much says it all. It's a state road. It's the only way to accomplish this. There are constantly complaints of issues speeding on Greenwich Avenue. And for those that know, it's a long straightaway and it's a hill. So especially people going down tend to gain some speed. And Pontiac Park is right there. So people regularly are crossing to it and nearby. Not to mention there's a library there as well. So request favorable action.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the council?
Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Council President?
If the Councilman Sinapi will allow, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. I also get a number of calls about traffic on Main Ave and Greenwich Ave especially.
Of course.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Favorable action. Second.
I hear a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Chairman, if I may, I misled you. This resolution is in regards to Greenwich Ave, Main Ave, on the part where it divides Callister and I's ward, though Greenwich Ave does carry over down through Pontiac. The same problems unfortunately exist as there is a park over there. There's a school over there. In fact, if anything, it's more of an issue given how fast people go on that road. Just to clarify. Feel free to move to reconsider if you want.
It is now 6:50 and the Intergovernmental Committee is adjourned.
Chairman, bring my mic over. And we'll be all set.
Thank you, sir.
What are you doing? Oh, it's you.
Where are you, sir? And there's yours.
Thank you.
Up next is the Appointments Committee.
All right. The time is now 6:52 and the Appointments Committee comes to order. First up is the acceptance of minutes. We have minutes from September 20th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have 5 appointments before us this evening. First up for the Land Trust, we have Kate Fitzpatrick. This is a new appointment to the Land Trust. Kate would be a new member. If you look in your packet, there is a brief biography and a resume. And I believe, is Kate here? Kate is here. If we have any questions. Any questions from members of the committee? No? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? All right. Without hearing any, do I have a motion to approve Kate Fitzpatrick's appointment to the Land Trust?
Move favorable action.
Second, especially with the background in environmental science.
Yeah, I think Kate is going to make a great addition to the Land Trust. They've really built a great board there. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome to the Land Trust. Second up tonight is an appointment to the Tourism Advisory Board. We have Mr. Lee Buchanan of the Hilton Garden Inn. Similarly, along with the appointment documentation, this is a reappointment. So Mr. Buchanan is not required to be here per our rules. But again, his bio is attached. We thank him for his continued interest in being a part of the Tourism Advisory Board. Do we have any questions from members of the committee? Members of the council? Members of the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So
Move
moved.
favorable action.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving right along to the Zoning Board of Review. We have 3 for this board this evening. First up is Miss Constance Beck. I see Miss Beck. Similarly to the others, along with the appointment paperwork, is an extensive resume. Everything appears to be in order. Any questions from members of the committee on Ms. Beck's appointment? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I certainly have no issue with Constance Beck being appointed by the mayor and our role as approving the qualified appointment. Reviewing the resume reveals that she is eminently qualified to be on the zoning board. More of a general concern as to the 3 appointments collectively. And I'm raising this concern similar to when I raised it at the previous meeting where appointments for the zoning board were being considered. Are any of the three appointees being considered tonight, would they qualify as the Republican appointee per the city ordinances that allow for one minority party appointee?
Anyone from the administration want to take that?
Councilman, we've been over and over this. The legal opinion is, the charter says that the minority party is that other than the mayor. I'm an independent. Both parties are minority. I'm not bound by that rule.
Thank you, Mayor. I can certainly understand that interpretation of the city council ordinances. Typically and traditionally, how the ordinances are interpreted is that where there is a Democratic mayor who's been elected, then the Republican Party would be considered the minority party and the Democratic Party the majority party, and then vice versa, where a Republican has been elected mayor, they would be considered the majority party, and the Democratic Party would be considered the minority party. As to these zoning board and other board appointments where there is a majority party and minority party. As my reading of the ordinance, not to repeat too much from last time, is that where there is more than one minority party, currently it seems that the ordinances would require at least one representative from each of the minority parties. And I do understand how that could potentially get complicated and how in the past that necessarily wasn't followed when the moderate party was also in existence. But I think that the general spirit of the rules is such that where there are multiple minority parties, that each of the minority parties have one representative on the zoning board. And so here, just as if there were, and I understand that some members of the zoning board, although I don't have the details on exactly whom, would be considered qualified Democratic Party appointees. If the shoe were on the other foot and there were no persons who could be considered Democratic Party appointees on the zoning board and three positions came up, then I would expect that at least one person of the three should be qualified as a Democratic Party appointee. Similarly, although I'm not a Republican, and I don't believe that there are, well, I shouldn't say I don't believe, I can simply state for a fact that there are no Republicans elected to the city council at this time. At the same time, I do feel like the spirit of the rules is such that there should be at least one person on the zoning board who would be qualified as a Republican Party appointee, especially as former chairman Donald Morash, who unfortunately had passed away, had been the Republican Party appointee. At least that's my understanding. And so I do have concerns if none of the three are appointed, none of the three nominees would qualify as a Republican Party appointee for similar reasons as discussed last time we were reviewing zoning board of review nominees.
Any other? Oh. All right, we'll finish this one up. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Members of the council? Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to say, just to follow up to what Councilman Rick said, I have to go in another direction. I have to agree with what the mayor said. I was always very frustrated when we ask citizens to come and represent their city, and we on the council make a decision. We as elected officials make a decision to choose a party, or as the mayor did, go independent. The citizens that are stepping up to serve the city, I don't want political party. I want citizens. I want people who will step up and speak on behalf of their neighbors and on behalf of the future of our cities. And with these three appointees, I'm confident that because they took the time, they heeded the call, they put their resumes together, I'm satisfied and confident that the needs of the city, the future of our city, and the commitment to our development, our future, and our citizens, and especially our neighborhoods that we represent will be represented. Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you. I do have questions. As you know, Ward 3, there are many developments going on and a lot of appearances before the Planning and Zoning Board. However, I do want to respect the time of our appointees, but I do have constituents that had questions, and I did request that they give them to me, and I consolidated them, if you will, and down to 2 questions. And I was wondering if I would have an opportunity to ask the appointees those questions, or if you would like me to refrain from that until after the 7 o'clock start.
I'll leave that to the council president.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we should start the meeting at 7. We've made a commitment that we will start the meeting on time. We will do roll call, and we will go right to, I will ask the council to go right to our special guests this evening from the library board.
Yes.
They will give their presentation, which will be about 5 to 8 minutes. Then we will go back into committees, back into the appointments. So
Thank
I just want to be consistent. We said we would start meetings on time, so I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely, and I respect that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll hold my comments until the continuation of the committee. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. So the appointments committee will recess until we get the opening ceremonies taken care of here.
Correct. Thank you very much. So just give us a couple minutes to get settled here. We will start the council meeting. We're going to do roll call, general communications, then we'll have our guests speak, and then we're going to go right back into appointments. I appreciate everyone's time on this. Thank you.
I'm good.
Good evening, everyone. I call the October 4th, 2021 City Council meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. Foley? Here. Mr. Gephardt?
Here.
Mr. Howe?
Here.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Here.
Mr. Riggs?
Here.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis? 8 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I would like to call on Councilman Foley, who's going to introduce our guests tonight, who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to play the national anthem, and then we will come back to you to give your presentation. So, Councilman Foley, if you would like to welcome them.
If they could step up to the podium. We have with us tonight, give me a second, I want to make sure I pronounce the names right. Stephanie Carter and Jana Stevenson. Jana is the director and Stephanie is a chair on the library board. And if I'm not mistaken, what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, you're one of my constituents. Am I correct?
Yes, you are
Yeah.
correct.
And I'm not fortunate enough to have Jana in my ward. There
Not
are
yet.
houses for sale, though. Thank you very much for coming tonight. It is our privilege to have you here, and please, present.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much. At this time, unless there's objection from members of the council, I would like to move to under general communications and have a presentation from the Library Board of Trustees. Is there any objection to moving that up at the agenda this evening? Hearing none. Welcome, my friends. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having us tonight. As Councilman Foley said, my name is Stephanie Carter. I am presently the chair of the Warwick Board of Trustees, the Warwick Public Library Board of Trustees, and I've been on the board since 2009. As you can see from the materials you have in front of you, there have been lots of great things happening at the Warwick Public Library, as always. Last year, right around this time, Jana Stevenson accepted the position as our new director, so she took over for Chris LaRue after serving as deputy director for quite a few years as well. So the board is very pleased with her performance and with all of the great things that are going on at the library. And because she is our expert in that, I'm going to turn things over to her to tell you a little bit more detail.
Thank you all for having us tonight. We normally put out a year in review. It's our annual report, which is what you have in front of you. I wanted to start off with the staff of the Warwick Library who made it what it was this year. It was very difficult for staff to go back to the library because we are very public. We have hundreds of people walk through our doors every day, all the time. So it was really the staff that welcomed the public back, and it was their goal to make sure that the library reopened and was full service starting, I believe it was around July 8th in last year. So I began my annual review by recognizing each and every staff member that works at the library. There are some other highlights. There's the typical expenditures and income. I wanted to highlight all of the grants our library received this year, and this wasn't just my grant writing abilities. This was the whole staff worked together to bring all of this extra funding into the library. One of the big pivots we had to do is every single thing we've ever done in the library has been in person, face to face, and we turned all of that around into virtual programming. And we ended up serving over 12,000 patrons with our virtual programs. We also saw a 22% increase in digital usage. That doesn't count the time period between March 2020 and the end of June 2020, where we saw an even bigger spike. This just covers the fiscal year. I think it showed all throughout the state, it showed that libraries were still incredibly important, and instead of getting things in their hands, they were able to get them digitally. On the back of the program, you'll see we were also able to extend. Normally, we have our summer reading program, and it's for kids, and it's big fun and awesome. We extended that to all year programming and for all ages. I think it's important to incorporate parents and guardians and grandparents and friends and family, everyone into that reading process. It makes reading more fun and enjoyable for those who are maybe struggling with it. So, big number, 1,140,728 minutes were tracked. Hopefully more than that was actually read, but that's what was tracked last year with our reading programs. So not just digital items went out, we also saw increasingly better numbers of physical items, and we also saw increasingly better numbers of visits to the library. Over the summer, we finally broke the 10,000 visits a month mark with our summer reading program. I think in June we had 12,000, and in July we had something like 13 or 14,000 visits. So we're getting back into getting people back into the library. The other part that is included in this program is our strategic plan. So I don't want to look back too terribly much. I want to look forward. And that's what's included here is a brief synopsis of our strategic plan. Normally what you do is you go out into the community and find out what they need. But that, of course, this year was very difficult. So we looked inward. So our top priority on this strategic plan for the next 2 to 3 years is staff development. The way the Warwick Library is organized, I feel could be a bit more modern, a bit more efficient. So I'm hoping to be able to move towards that direction with our organization. While we're working on ourselves, we're still providing programming and learning enrichment to the community. This past weekend, we had, Greg Abate. He's a musician, very popular musician. We had 80 attendees. Normally he pulls over 100, but I think people are being cautious. So we're doing more concerts. We're also doing tons of story times. One of the hardest things, I think, for parents of young children was being stuck inside all the time and not seeing other parents. So we have tons of kids coming in for story times 3 days a week. One of the other main components in our strategic plan is community engagement. More often than not, libraries stay in the library. We focus on ourselves. We don't really focus much on getting out of the building, but I'm hoping to change that. We're participating in more outreach programs with the Parks and Rec Department. We're working with the Chamber of Commerce, the Police Department, all of the different city departments that are creating these, like the food truck events and the movie nights and things like that. And then in addition to that, we're working with West Bay Community Action to provide outreach services, digital resources, and workforce development, social emotional development skills for children. All of those things we're working on. And our goal is to bring our services to the people, not making them come to us all the time. Maybe they'll come to us more too. One of the last things listed is the infrastructure, and I want to thank all of you and the administration, the current administration, because you've made it possible for us to have our elevator repaired and also our HVAC system, and we're greatly appreciative of that. We provide heating in the winter for people who maybe can't afford to pay for it all the time at home. We also provide air conditioning in the summer for people who are too hot to be at their homes or just outside. So the HVAC system seems like it's something on top of the roof, and it maybe isn't the most attractive thing to spend our money on, but it really does help the people of Warwick. So I want to thank you all for that. If you have any questions, I don't want to take up your time. If you have any questions about any of these numbers or anything else that we're doing, please feel free to reach out. And I do want to plug Councilman McAllister's new podcast that he has coming up. You'll have to tune in to Warwick Radio to hear him talk all about Warwick. And hopefully maybe we can get some of you to participate in a podcast as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll just take one more minute. I promise I'll be quick. So I did want to commend the library staff. As Jana said, they've been integral in everything that's happened over the last year. And the strategic plan is something that they worked on as a team. It was really impressive to see. The last thing I would say is thank you all. The council is responsible for appointing the board members for the Warwick Board of Trustees. So right now we are fully staffed, but we do have some people who need to be reappointed. So if there's anything we can do to help with that, we would love it as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and we really appreciate all the work that you're doing, and we're thrilled that you could come here today. You mentioned your the Board of Trustees. I know a lot of them. They're really great. Jeff is here. Kim, Diane, my neighbor, Ella works in the mayor's office as well, is great. I know we all enjoy working with you, and please use us as a resource. And I hope I didn't kill your podcast series before it even got started. So thank you very much. Have a great evening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Barring any objections from the council, we'd like to reconvene the appointments committee. Hearing none, the appointments committee will reconvene. Thank you.
The time is now 7:20. Appointments reconvened. Where were we? Constance Beck. Zoning Board of Review, number one, we were through the committee and we are to Councilman Howe, who had some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have with your permission, I have a numerous paragraph statement, but I singled out one paragraph from a constituent, and I feel it's a powerful paragraph that I would like to read for the record, but I will be happy to share this for other members for the record, so you can review the entire, as well as the appointees. Second paragraph, decisions reached by the zoning board members can and sometimes do have a long-lasting and far-reaching impact on the quality of life and property values of their fellow citizens. After reviewing city ordinances related to zoning, an individual could form the opinion that the zoning board member working together are intended to act as a safety net for resident taxpayers to ensure they have the appropriate seat at the table, and that their voices are heard in the decision-making process to deal with zoning issues, especially those related to the issuance of special use permits. I read that because I think that summed up exactly how I see where the mayor did a call for citizens, and the citizens that are going to be appointed are representatives removed from the council, though approved by the council, and removed from the politics to look at the best future under the rules of the I have a comprehensive plan. So I liked that paragraph because it really identifies that the term seat at the table. Our appointees are people who are speaking on behalf of the vast citizens and looking and protecting the city as well as the developers, as well as the citizens, that we mesh and work well together. So I wanted to make that statement. And so at this time, I believe, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask if the individual, I'm sorry, my computer shut down.
Yep, Ms. Beck, would you mind stepping up to the podium? Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your patience. So I have one general question for you, and I welcome a discussion. So if the question isn't clear, please, I welcome you to ask it. And I'll ask the same questions of the other appointees. But I do want to start and say thank you so much for stepping up and heeding the call that Mayor Cozy put out and to serve your city. And I understand there's an ordinance in place, and I am not ridiculing or criticizing Councilman Ricks at all. I know that he's as equally appreciative as I am. I truly don't care what party you belong with. I just care that you care to serve your city. So thank you.
Before Mr. Councilman Howe asks the question, just a tip on the microphone. You do need to get somewhat close to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Proceed.
So the question is, and what I did, just so you'll have a fair advantage of, I was getting inundated because, as I said earlier, and this is for all the appointees, there's quite a few projects going on in Ward 3, some more attention or controversial, if you will, or involved and time-consuming than others. And so, of course, I got inundated because I am the approving authority of the people on the zoning board. So what I did is, respectfully, I said, please let me represent you in the council, and please give me your questions. And so of all the questions I got, which were well over 20, I narrowed it down to 2. So that I felt would answer the questions best. So how do you perceive the overall quality and character of the city of Warwick?
I've been a resident of Warwick for 20 years. There's so many facets of Warwick. I mean, I live in the Potawatomi section. I also work for the Department of Transportation, so I'm very involved with a lot of development and easements and projects and stuff like that. And I'm on the front end because I send out the letters. So I deal with the residents that are affected by all the projects that I deal with. So I have some sympathy for you that you have to be on the front line to deal with that. I mean, Warwick's a great city. It offers so much diversity. We have high commercial areas. We have coastal areas, and I really, appreciate the whole combination of the city itself.
Thank you. And the only city with an airport smack dab in the middle of it, right? Thank you. And how would you balance the approval process of businesses' interests in Warwick while maintaining the quality of life for its citizens?
Well, as with the airport, as you mentioned, we did the buffer zones around it, we absorbed homes and through my department as well. It has to be consideration. Obviously, you do want some development, but you don't want to impose on fractions. Residential people, when they choose their houses, they know where the buffers are and they know what the impact is. Not that that should not be a factor with development, but it has to be a balance, basically. So you're looking out for everybody's benefit.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll save the questions for the next can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Howe. Any other members of the council? Councilman Lattice, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too would like to thank you for stepping up to serve on the zoning board. I want to make more of a general statement following up on both Councilman Ricks and Councilman Howe. I certainly respect Councilman Ricks's position and his opinions, as he stated earlier. But it is actually refreshing for me to see the administration zeroing in on qualified candidates. We had this ridiculous unwritten rule that, you can't have two people from the same ward serving on, that's ridiculous. Politics needs to stay out of those appointments. There's no place for it. Personally, I don't care what your party affiliation is. Doesn't matter to me. All I'm interested in is, are you qualified to serve on that particular board and in that particular position? I don't care what ward you come from. I don't care what the letter is at the end of your name. Does not matter. And as Councilman Howe indicated, we absolutely need people who get appointed to these positions because of what they can do for the city and what they can do for the individual wards that we have these different things come up with. Not because I know a guy. So while we don't always agree on things, and I don't always agree with things that the administration proposes, and that's what we should do. That's called good governance. But we always disagree respectfully. This particular item, hats off to the administration to stepping up to the plate and saying, you know what, I want qualified people, not connected. So thank you again for your service. I certainly look forward to seeing how you do business on the zoning board, and I'm sure that it's going to be for the best interest of the city and all the people you represent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Ritz.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues for their comments. I just want to, especially for members of the public, clarify my position on this. For me, it's not about introducing politics or a political party into this as a matter of choice. It's a matter of, even though I may have my own disagreements with how this particular ordinance is written, and even though I personally think that the ordinance was not written particularly well because it failed to imagine a situation where the mayor would be someone other than a Democrat or a Republican, I think that my reading of the ordinance and the spirit of the ordinance is such that it requires that there be at least one person of the minority party, and my reading of that for this would be that both the Democratic Party and the Republican parties, as state recognized parties, the only two state recognized parties at this time, should have at least one person on the zoning board, as well as some of the other boards and committees that fall under the ordinance. And so I'll just briefly read this one paragraph from the ordinance so that members of the public may follow along. This is section 10-24 of the city's code of ordinances. It's entitled Minority Representation. Quote, "There shall be minority party representation on all boards and commissions. The minority party shall mean the party other than that of the mayor. The mayor shall make such minority party appointment from a list of 5 names submitted by the chairman of the city committee of the minority party at least 5 days before such appointment is to be made, provided, however, if the chairman of such a city committee shall fail or refuse to submit a list as aforesaid, the mayor shall appoint any person known by him to be a member of the political party entitled to said appointment. Unless otherwise established, all terms expire on the 15th day of the last month of the term, unless that day falls on a non-business day, then the term shall expire on the first business day after the 15th. So, with all that, I absolutely agree with my colleagues that appointments should be made based on qualifications and merits. I have no reason to doubt, especially on reading the resume, that Constance Beck is fully qualified as a member to become a member of the zoning board. And as in the past, I know that we've had some hearings where it's been discussed, although not at this hearing, about consideration for the person who would be removed. As in previous hearings, that should not be a factor at all in our vote this evening. And I'm certainly not making it a factor because the mayor is entitled to put forward a qualified candidate, and we are to consider that qualified candidate. So I'm giving zero consideration as to the persons who were not nominated, as we are to be considering the candidates before us. So I suppose with all of that said, as obviously it's my position that one person from the minority party have the entitlement to a seat on the board pursuant to the ordinance. Not my thoughts, not my opinion, but a matter of what I feel is necessary to uphold the ordinances that are on the books here. I have no issue with voting in favor of the first 2 nominees, as it is my understanding that neither one of those nominees was considered to be the Republican Party minority appointee. However, and I know full well that Mr. Marash unfortunately had passed away and that his seat is vacant. Without going into further detail, and certainly without questioning the qualifications of the nominee who would fill that vacant seat, I suppose that as a matter of following the ordinance, what I interpret the intent of the ordinance to be under these circumstances, and I do realize and understand that there can be valid differing interpretations of the ordinance because it is unclear as to these particular situations. But with all that said, I am comfortable voting in favor of the first 2 of the zoning board nominees, but would reserve my vote on the seat previously held by that minority party nominee for a future minority party nominee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything to add there? Thank you.
As I said before, we went through this during the winter, and the council had agreed with me at that point. We've appointed two members to the zoning board. It didn't come up then. I'm curious as to why it's coming up tonight. I did not even ask these people what their political affiliations are. My solicitor ruled in my favor. Other lawyers I've talked to, they said I'm not bound by that ordinance, by that what Councilman Ricks is referring to. I maintain these are three excellent qualified people that want to serve, and I'm asking you to appoint them tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. In the winter when we did have that discussion, we looked at that, I believe, as something that would fall in the hands of the administration to work out that process. So we are to vet the candidates that are put before us. Without further ado, are there any other questions or comments? Do you have a solicitor, anything to add that would otherwise change our direction? No. Any other comments from members of the public on Ms. Beck's appointment to the Zoning Board of Review? Step up to the microphone, please. If you could just state your name for the
Michael
record.
Penta. Michael Penta. I live a resident in Warwick for 48, 49 years. Jeremy Ricks, Councilman, I appreciate you doing your homework and looking into that. Please do notify the documentation that this person being appointed by the mayor. It's very important to underline that in there. Maybe it's a great time for the council members or whoever in the future to look back at this. And thank you, Mr. Howell. Thank you, Mr. Ladisor, for recognizing what the administration is doing. Going out there, getting the right person that counts for this city, who's going to make the right choice, the right decision for the constituencies of Warwick, Rhode Island. I appreciate that. I appreciate the administration for what they're doing and trying. If there's 3 appointees, we should fill them. Get them in there. Let them do their job. We have too much right now at state in Warwick. We have too much of a backlog in Warwick. It's unfair to the businesses coming into Warwick. It's unfair to the constituencies in Warwick because the decisions are not being able to be made, whether it's a D or an R at the end of the name. The mayor appoints that particular individual. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Penta. Any other members of the public wish to comment on this appointment? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Move favorable action.
A favorable and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations on your appointment, Ms. Beck. Welcome to the zoning board. The fun has just begun. Next up, number 2, Miss Lorraine Byrne. Similarly, the paperwork here is all in order. We have the appointment sheet and we have Ms. Byrne's resume. She, again, appears to be eminently qualified for the role. Do any members of the committee have any questions on Ms. Byrne's appointment? Hearing none, any members of the council? Councilman Howe.
Thank you so much. I would respectfully request if Ms. Byrne would approach the microphone. And please understand that not to beat this situation down, but when I first came at this, and I think it's fair the mayor know this too, when we first heard about the appointments to the zoning, I was prepared to say Ward 3 needs to be represented because we don't have anyone sitting. But I got to be honest with you, I was satisfied the fact that it was an all call. And more importantly, it was when people, I've learned in my time with nonprofits as well as being on the council, when people take the time to set up a resume and put their time on the line to volunteer for the city, they usually, they understand the situation without any, like, I hate to use the word agenda, but without any reasoning, they say, I just want to serve the city. That's usually a great indication. And it immediately calmed me down. So I'm very comfortable with, no matter, it's the city of Warwick that's being represented. And with that said, I'm going to ask you the same two questions I asked the previous appointee. Understanding that, in Ward 3, and I'm going to harp on this, I always say that there's a big, Warwick is a great city with a big old airport and smack dab in the middle of it. Well, we're that inner layer. Ward 3 is that inner layer where the airport, where the whole of the donut. So, that's Ward 3. So obviously I want to ensure that Ward 3 is, and the citizens are heard and understood. And these are just two questions that will follow up to that. So I thank you so much again for stepping up. And I thank you for taking the time to give us and come here and serve your city. So the first question is, how do you perceive the overall quality and character of the city of Warwick?
Well, Warwick is so much more than a bedroom town. It's a city. It's a lively city. It's got a lot to it, but it does have people's homes in it, and there has to be a balance between the cityness of it and the home part of it.
Agreed. Thank you. That's a great answer. And secondly, how would you balance the approval process of businesses interested in Warwick while maintaining the quality of life for its citizens and its residents of the neighborhoods?
I liked the first answer to that. There are buffers. There are buffers established in the regulations. There are provisions for more buffers in anything that's built. And it's something that you have to be mindful of, to preserve the residential portions while allowing growth and modernization and improvements.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Howe. Any other members of the council? Hearing none. Any members of the public have anything to add? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move favorable action.
Second, especially given the lengthy background with engineering.
Yes. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome to the zoning board. Number 3, Walter Augustin. I'm not sure if it's Augustine or Augustin. Augustin, the third. So Mr. Augustin is up for an appointment also to the Zoning Board of Review. Similar to the former 2, the paperwork here is in order. Again, Mr. Augustin has a long history of relevant experience, evidenced here in his resume. Do I have any questions or comments from members of the committee on Mr. Augustin? Councilman Sinapi.
I'm just glad to see the extensive construction background. The more varied relevant perspectives we can have, the better. And he certainly has extensive experience in that regard. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I won't repeat everything that I previously said. I would like to specifically say that I also reviewed the resume of Mr. Augustin and find him to be highly qualified. So want to, I suppose, apologize in advance that my vote has, it's not any slight against your qualifications. It's merely my reading of this ordinance that I feel that being a member of this council and my experience as an attorney, I feel compelled that I have to follow that interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Well, that being all the members of the committee, any members of the council? Councilman Howe.
With respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I thank you, but I'm seeing that the nominee is from Councilman Lattiser's ward. I'd respectfully defer to Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Councilman. I've got a neck injury, so turning that way quickly is.
I can help you out with that, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we can snap you right back into shape. Don't worry.
Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman Howe, and thank you, Chairman. So thank you very much for stepping up to the plate to serve in this position. Your resume is incredible. Your experience is extremely impressive. You've not only have the experience in construction, you have the experience in financial management of some significant projects. Of course, the fact that you live in Ward 5 isn't swaying me one way or another. My colleagues just happen to be jealous of that fact, but that's okay. Welcome, sir, and thank you very much for stepping up to the plate to serve. We certainly appreciate you joining on the zoning board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me know if I can do anything about that neck problem.
I'll
you
swivel
have.
back this way. Councilman Howe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, as I said to the other nominees and the other appointees, thank you so much for stepping up and putting your time on the line and giving your time for the city and moving forward, serving on this. So I'm going to ask you the same two questions that I asked the previous. These are, as I said, 20 questions from constituents. I narrowed down to 2. And I would also like to say that I will be voting upon the answer of the questions for your nomination, as I'm very confident that the mayor spoke to his solicitor and got the legal background and the recommendation to move forward with these. I know that he's been very diligent and careful, so I have no legal problems with this at all. The question is, how do you perceive the overall quality and character of the city of Warwick?
The overall quality of the city is fabulous. I mean, we moved here 34 years ago, raised a family, and they've all continued to live here and raise their families. So to me, that says something.
That says everything. You're absolutely right. Do you mind if I'll move on to the next one because you answered it.
That's fine.
That was the answer we were looking for. How would you balance the approval process of businesses interested in Warwick while maintaining the quality of life for its citizens?
That's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
You always want to bring in new businesses to help defer tax revenue and just be beneficial to your neighbors and citizens. I hate to say it, ordinances are great, but you got to use a little common sense on what you bring in. That's something that people tend to forget about.
Mm-hmm.
It's just do your due diligence and going through the process and not creating a bad situation.
And if you don't mind, may I do a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Thank you. But when you say bring in, that also means bringing in the community to hear their voices as well?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Over my career, I've dealt with a lot of communities and a lot of the projects that I've been involved in. And there's a lot of input you get from people that you may not realize.
Excellent. Thank you so much, sir, and good luck. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other members of the council wish to offer any questions or comments? We're all clear. Okay. Hearing none, any members of the public wish to offer comment? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Second. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Nay.
Aye. Welcome to the zoning board. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Thank you. Appointments adjourns at 7:51 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The next committee is Public Properties.
Sure. All right. What about these? Are they yours? Or yours? They're yours now. Can you get the show going, please? Oh. Wait, it's Rick's. Could be a while. Then you gotta go through the whole loop again. Huh? I know. Why are we here? Next meeting, we don't have to.
The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs comes to order at 7:52 p.m. We have acceptance of the minutes from the committee meeting held on September 20, 2021. Do we have a motion?
Favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First up, PCR 124-21. This is Councilman Lattiser. It is not yet drafted. A resolution in regards to naming/renaming of Bend Field located at the Bend Street Complex in honor of Joseph F. Johnson Sr. Field. Not yet drafted.
Thank you, Chairman. So first I need to direct a question to our solicitor. Will you be able to have this ready for tomorrow to get it on the October 18th calendar, or do I need to move it to November 1st?
I would recommend if we can move to the November 1st meeting, that would give it ample time to make sure it's in proper form.
Mr. Chair, I would request to hold until November 1st.
We have a request from the sponsor. Do we have a motion?
Hold November 1st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Held to November 1st. Second, this is Councilwoman Travis. It is not yet drafted. PCR 126-21, a resolution in regards to the naming of the beach access road in the city park to Bob Levitt Trail. As it is not yet drafted, has the council president heard anything from?
Yes, I have. Can we please hold this to the November 1st meeting, Mr. Chairman?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Held to November 1st. The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs closes at 7:54 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We will now be going back into the regular council meeting. Just give us a few minutes to get set up. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for your patience on this. So we are back into the regular council meeting. We just finished committees. We've already done the roll call and the salute to the flag, and we had a great presentation by the chairwoman of the library board and the executive director of the library board. At this time, I'm going to ask, are there any objections of moving the executive session to the end of the agenda so we could move forward on the council meeting here, and then we will go back into executive session when we have to leave the council chambers to go downstairs. We'll do that at the end. Is there any objection to moving that? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Thank you. Are there any council people that have anything under general communications this evening? Okay, and there was no under executive communications from the administration. So now we'll move on to number one, announcement appointments. There are none. Number two, appointments requiring confirmation. Councilman Gephardt.
Thank you, Council President. To the Land Trust, Kate Fitzpatrick. Recommend. Do I do my recommendation at the end or after each?
Yes, please give the recommendation.
Recommend favorable action.
And you'll move that as favorable?
Move favorable
Second by Councilman Howe. Any questions on this appointment that were not asked during the appointments committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? 8 yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Next up, Councilman Gephardt.
The Tourism Advisory Board, Lee Buchanan. Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Gephardt.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Howe. Any questions that were not brought up during committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? 8 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. The appointment passes. Next up, Zoning Board of Review, Councilman Gephardt.
Constance Beck. Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Gephardt.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Howe. Any questions that were not brought up during committee this evening? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? 8 yes.
The appointment passes. Thank you. Number two, Councilman Gephardt.
Lorraine Byrne, also to the Zoning Board of Review. Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Gephardt.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Howe. Any questions that were not brought up earlier this evening? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? 8 yes, appointment passes.
The appointment is confirmed. Thank you. Number three this evening, Councilman Gephardt.
Walter Augustin, Zoning Board of Review. Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Lattiser.
Favorable action.
Second by Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments that were not brought up during appointments earlier? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
No.
Mr. Sinapi? 7 yes, 1 no, appointment passes.
Thank you. The appointment passes. Number three this evening, we're moving on to the consent calendar. Number one is PCR 127-21, resolution relative to bids. Committee report, finance.
Move favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Foley. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. PCR 127-21, first bid 2022-121, purchases of 2021 or new Ostetco cable type catch basin cleaning truck. Bid 2, 2022-197, State of Rhode Island seasonal equipment purchase, maintenance, and repairs. Item number 3, bid 3 is 2021-283, Alpha Bravo fire apparatus repairs. Item number 4 was 2022-195, PACE upgrade assistance report support. Item number 5, bid 2022-196, survey work police radio sites. Bid 2022-186, Sappho's fire services renewal. Bid 2022-187, purchase used Harley-Davidson police motorcycles. Bid 2022-181, DIMS hardware maintenance. Bid 2020-080, police promotional testing. Bid 2022-150, reversible snow plows from 8 feet to 12 feet. Bid 2022-153, elevator maintenance and repairs. Bid 2021-215 Alpha Bravo, fire sprinkler system inspections and/or repairs. Bid 2020-084, tire repairs and recapping. Bid 2022-152, repair parts for snow plows. Bid 2022-151, repair parts for sand and salt spreaders. Bid 2022-149, gutter and tube tight brooms. Bid 2021-142, athletic field marking paint. Bid 2022-198, vehicle purchase. And bid 2021-095 Bravo, security system monitoring and maintenance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions on the bid package that were not asked during the Finance Committee earlier this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to number 2 on the consent calendar, PCR 128-21, resolution relative to abatements. Committee report, Finance.
Just to verify with the solicitor on this one, we move favorable action and then we go to the separate PCR? Thank you. Move favorable action on PCR 128-21.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action on PCR 128-21 in the amount of $10,333.69.
And that is second by Councilman Foley and Councilman Gephardt. So I believe that is an amended number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So right now we are looking at a amendment for PCR 128-21 for a new total of $10,333.69.
Yes.
All right, that has been moved in second. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, because we. Thank you. Just wanted to confirm with the legal counsel. So we have now moved and seconded the consent calendar. Are there any questions on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action on the consent calendar.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? 8 yes.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes. Councilman Howe, I believe one item was removed from the consent calendar.
Yes, Mr. President. Abatement 11559 in the amount of $415.20 is now PCR 129-21 and recommended for favorable action.
You've moved and as favorable action, second by Councilman Foley. Any questions on this? Again, I will be abstaining on this, which is why we have pulled it out as a PCR. So the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Abstain.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? 7 yes, 1 abstention.
Thank you. The motion passes. We are now on to unfinished business on the agenda. First up is PCO 15-19 Sub A, an ordinance regarding health insurance for city employees. This was in the ordinance committee. It's going to be held to November 15th. Number 2 this evening is PCO 23-20, an ordinance in regards to omnibus reforms, updates, and amendments in the Chapter 4 of the Water Code of Ordinances. This was not drafted. It's going to be held to December 20th. Number 3 this evening is PCO 9-21, an ordinance requiring the Warwick City Council to receive 60 days notice prior to taking a voted on any contract or benefit package in the city of Warwick. This was for first passage, not drafted. It's going to be held to November 1st. Number 4 this evening is PCR 91-21, a resolution to the General Assembly in support of allowing for the restriction of the sale of firearms in the vicinity of a school or daycare by any seller, except that such sellers currently operating under such circumstances shall be exempt therefore at the particular location. Committee report intergovernmental.
Favorable, Mr. President.
For action, Councilman Sinapi. Moved, second by Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Howe, Councilman McElroy, Councilman Foley, Councilman Gephardt. Any questions that were not asked during the intergovernmental committee earlier this evening? Councilman Howe.
Just the request to be added as a co-sponsor, Mr. President.
We get the thumbs up from the.
Thank you.
And Councilman Foley, I believe you're already listed now. Councilman McElroy is as well. Anybody else?
I also was on as a co-sponsor.
Councilman Lattiser as well. Yep. All right. And Councilman Ricks and Councilman McAllister. We'll go all the way around. Any other questions? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
8 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Number 5 this evening is PCR 92-21, a resolution amending the council rules. Committee report ordinance.
Committee recommends favorable action with an amendment.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
So I move favorable action with an amendment.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Foley. Go ahead, Mr. Sinapi.
I defer to the solicitor regarding the amendment.
The recommended amendment from the committee is on page 13, line 38, to delete the word fifth and insert in its place the word seventh. The second piece of the amendment is on page 14, line 25, where it will be deleting the word docketed and inserting in its place the words placed on the agenda.
Are there any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action on the amendment.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Thank
8
you.
yes to amend.
The amendment passes. For action, Councilman Sinapi.
I move favorable action as amended.
Second by Councilman Howe, Councilman Foley, Councilman Gephardt. Any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action as amended.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
8 yes as amended.
Thank you. The motion passes. Number 6 this evening is PCR 115-21, a resolution to RIDOT to perform a traffic study on East Avenue between the intersections of East Ave and River Street and Bald Hill Road and East Ave. Committee report intergovernmental.
Favorable action, Mr. President.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
I move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Howe, Councilman Foley. Any questions that were not asked during committee earlier this evening? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr.
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
8 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Number 7 this evening is PCR 116-21, a resolution to Rhode Island DOT to perform a traffic study on Maine Ave between the intersections of Maine Ave and Greenwood Ave, and Post Road and Maine Ave. This is committee report intergovernmental.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
I move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Howe, Councilman Foley, Councilman Gephardt. Any questions that were not asked during the committee? Councilman Sinapi.
Just a quick clarification for those who didn't hear. This one, it is regards to Greenwich Ave and Main Ave, basically between Arugas and Greenwood Inn. And the issues with Greenwich Ave are so prevalent that I mixed it up with the Greenwich Ave by Pontiac, which the only reason we're not doing that one too is because that road's being changed by the state. So this is desperately needed.
Thank you. Any other additional questions? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? 8 yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. We're now moving on to new business on the agenda. Number 1 is PCO 31-21, an ordinance in regards to scheduling of planning and zoning board meetings on city council meeting nights. This was not drafted. It's going to be held to October 18. Number 2 this evening is PCR 124-21, a resolution in regards to naming and renaming Ben Field. This was not drafted. It's going to be held to November 1st. Number 3 this evening is PCR 125-21, a resolution in regards to a four-way stop sign at Clifton and Leroy. This was not drafted. It's going to be held to October 18th. Number 4 this evening is PCR 126-21, a resolution in regards to naming of the Beach Access Road in City Park. This was not drafted. It's going to be held to November 1st. At this time, I would like to call on Councilman Howe. We're going to go back to the top of the agenda this evening. And Councilman Howe, if you could make a motion, and you have the information in front of you, we'll get a second, and then we have to do a roll call vote to move into executive session.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that the Warwick City Council go into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5, Alpha 2, to discuss pending and potential litigation, specifically Eugenia Iliano, a trustee, versus Neil Dupuis, KC 2020-594 and KC 2021-273. Richard Faria and Dale Shea, trustees, versus Neil Dupuis, KC 2020-135 and KC 2020-730. Richard Renley, Inc. Is it right? All right. Richard Realty, Inc. versus Neil Dupuis, KC 2020-612. Michael and Betsy Slavitt, SLAVIT versus City of Warwick, KC 2020-567. And Target Corporation versus Neil Dupuis, KC 2020-546 and KC 2021-218.
Thank you. Do we have a second to move into executive session? Second by Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Ricks, and Councilman Foley. Okay, we will do a roll call vote, but just for the people watching at home and the people in attendance here, we will move into executive session, so we will move downstairs. The Sergeant of Arms is going to stay here. If there are any members of the public that are waiting, the Sergeant of Arms will be here. Once we come out of executive session, we will get counsel of how to come out of executive session, and then we have finished the rest of the agenda, but we will have to move into the docket session when we return. So the clerk will call the roll to move into executive session.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Thank you. We will now move into executive session. Again, for individuals watching at home or individuals here, the council is going downstairs for the meeting in executive session. We will return once executive session is over. The Sergeant of the Arms is here if you have any questions. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Oh my God, yes. It's been up. Yeah. The moderate Democrat that's saying no to the 3.5 trillion protest are followed into the LA.
Yeah, similar. Yeah, yeah. What's funny about that is when she ran against Salad, they made her a socialist, like left-wing socialist vote. You know, they're like, it's going to ruin everything. And she gets elected. It's like, no, she's pretty moderate. It's so funny how they brand you.
So I want to ask you a question.
Yes, Councilman.
You can ask it now.
Oh, okay. Okay, report. I read this and then I go right there.
All right. Thank you very much. We are now moving out of executive session. I need a vote to end executive session. A motion made
So
by
moved.
Councilman. Second, Councilman Howe. Okay, Councilman Howe's going to make the motion. I apologize.
Motion convene into open session.
I need a second on that. Second by
Second.
Councilman Gephardt. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Report on the actions taken in executive session.
I'm sorry, excuse me. We got to do a roll call to come back. in
Okay,
executive
will do.
So the clerk will call the roll to come back into regular session.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
8 yes to reconvene.
Okay. Councilman Howe's going to give the report.
Yes, Mr. President. Report on actions taken in executive session. Warwick City Council convened into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-65-5 Alpha 2 regarding pending potential litigation on Eugenia Iliano, trustee of KC 2020-594 and KC 2021-273, Richard Furia and Dale Shea on KC 2020-135 and KC 2020-730, Richard Realty Incorporated, KC 2020-612, Michael and Betsy Slavin on KC 2020-567, and Target Corporation on KC 2020-546 and KC 2021-218. Motion to seal executive session minutes.
Motion second by Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Foley. Okay, the clerk will call the roll to seal the executive committee minutes.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? 8 yes. Motion passes to seal the minutes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Okay. Great. Thank you very much, Councilman Howe. We are now moving to the docket session. Well, first, unanimous consent. Ward 1, anything under unanimous consent?
Yes, a resolution in regards to the removal of no parking signs on the north side of Mianatumbo Drive, east of pole number 20.
Councilman, you want that in the docket session? We're in unanimous consent right now?
Thank you.
No problem. Pass.
Nothing for unanimous.
Ward 2, unanimous consent.
Pass.
Ward 3?
Pass.
Ward 4?
Pass.
Ward 5?
5, pass.
Ward 6? Ward 7? Passes. Ward 8?
Pass.
Ward 9?
I'll pass too.
Okay. Councilman Lattiser, if you could move us to the docket session, please.
If there be no further business before this honorable body, we move to the docket session.
Any objections? Hearing none, we will move to the docket session. Councilman Foley, do you have anything to docket?
Yes, a resolution in regards to removal no parking signs on the north side of Mianatumbo Drive, east of pole number 20.
Public safety. Ward 2, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 3?
Pass.
Ward 4?
I have one, Mr. President, a resolution in regards to erecting a three-way stop sign at the intersection of Edge Hill Road and Brewster Drive.
Public safety. Ward 5?
I have one. It's an ordinance And the ordinance is in regards to erecting no parking either side of the street along the roadway of Angel Court in each section of Narragansett Bay Avenue from Angel Court to Warwick Neck Avenue. And I do have a favorable traffic study accompanying it.
Thank you. We'll put that in the ordinance committee. Ward 6, I'm going to docket on behalf of Councilwoman Travis, a resolution in regards to the 2022 City Council calendar. Intergovernmental. Ward 7, I also have a resolution to docket with the co-sponsors, Councilman McElroy and Councilman Foley. This is a resolution to the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management approving the City of Warwick's submission to the 2022 Recreation Acquisition and Development Grant Program. We'll put that in the intergovernmental.
Council President.
We're going to keep it there. Ward 8.
Just one ordinance in regards to reducing the speed limit on Reed Street from 25 miles per hour to 15 miles per hour.
An ordinance committee. Ward 9.
Nothing, but if you'd add me to the, as a co-sponsor to the last one that you
Sure.
introduced.
Yeah. Of course. Any other, anybody else would like to co-sponsor that? It's for the a DEM Development Grant Program. All right. Thank you. We'll do the full council. Would like to be co-sponsors on that. Thank you for your support. Okay. And if there's no more business, just a reminder, we still got to get everything in for the next meeting until the mayor signs the legislation. So the deadline for tomorrow is still in place, 12 o'clock to get your things in to be docketed. Thank you very much and have a good evening, everyone.